what can we do as, people with a microphone in this market to make sure that as many people get and buy Bitcoin as possible before that happens?
Right. Well, the sad news is that a lot of people simply won't buy it. And, like the story of Noah and the ark, they're going to drown. But, here's the thing, Scott, when you're in an airplane and there's a sudden problem, they always tell you when the air mask drops, put it on your own face first. And then if you have kids or whatever, try to help your kids. So when this thing collapses, you have to make sure that you, Scott, and me, Max, have enough Bitcoin. And then we may be in a position to help people without Bitcoin. But we're never going to be able to convince people without Bitcoin who don't want to be convinced to get Bitcoin before the problem. And so we shouldn't really worry about them. We should just worry about getting Bitcoin ourselves and getting as much Bitcoin as we possibly can. And then when it hits the fan, then you're in a position to help somebody. But if somebody doesn't want help, there's nothing you can do. It would be a waste of time in Bitcoin to get somebody to try to come to Bitcoin if they're not ready for it, and they never will be ready for it before the dollar goes into a huge collapse. So just keep stacking sats, and then when the thing blows up, you'll be in a position to help somebody.
Bill Barhyde made a very similar argument when I had him on the show from Abra. He basically said, it's going to obviously be the fortunate few that have it, but then there's going to be a natural trickle down when they actually have to spend it and use it in that future where the dollar is worthless.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's basically saying the same thing. And, yeah, that's basically true. I don't, people say that, I'm looking at on Twitter these days, and they're like, "Oh, you toxic maximalists are, turning people off to Bitcoin," and it's not really the way to look at the situation. I think you have to. That would be like saying there's somebody shows up and tells a room full of folks that there's a bomb in the other room and it's going to blow up in 20 seconds and we all need to get out right away. And there's somebody in the audience that's saying, "Why are you such a toxic anti-bomb person?" I'm like, "I'm not a toxic anti-bomb person. I'm telling you, this thing's going to blow up and you need to leave right now." "Why are you being so toxic?" "I haven't finished my chicken salad." Right? I'm like, "Go ahead. Okay, stay." Stay. And it's been nice knowing you. Yeah.
But what's interesting is you were way ahead of this. I mean, there's a lot of, I didn't start till 2016, so I'm by no stretch an OG. I got it, I would say, late. People had told it about me earlier. What attracted you to Bitcoin in the first place? And what had you talking about these exact problems a decade ago?
Right. But as I mentioned, I invented a digital currency in 1996. And so in 1996 and through the end of that decade was, of course, the internet boom. And there were a few digital currencies that were emerging on the internet. The one I invented was one of them. And so I was aware of a few things. Number one, I was aware that a digital currency could be wildly popular because the one I invented was used on the Hollywood Stock Exchange, and the Hollywood Stock Exchange became within a year wildly popular. It was the most actively traded exchange in the world. We very quickly scaled up, had 500,000 users or so, which is pretty hard to do in that internet environment of that time. That the internet wasn't really as developed. And so I knew that people would respond to a digital currency in exactly the same way they would respond to any other currency. You take possession of it, and your psychology toward it is exactly the same. People. And there's a lot of examples of gaming currencies like the Linden dollar and Second Life, and I mean, there is people who live in these environments, and it was a gaming environment. The differentiation between the gaming environment and the non-gaming environment disappears. World of Witchcraft, of course. So I knew that was the story, and I also was trying to bring the Hollywood dollar into the real world. We maintained a fixed exchange rate of $1 million to 1. And so people would come to the Hollywood Stock Exchange and they'd make a few million, and then they could go to eBay and we would guarantee that we'd buy back their dollars at a fixed rate of $1 million to 1. So there was a crossing over into outside of the gaming world. And so then when I was introduced to Bitcoin in 2011, I immediately saw that it could exist already outside of the gaming world. I mean, it could exist in the wild. It could compete with the dollar, and as such, it could be huge. And so we started talking about it, started buying it. I started investing in